Well, it's not 100% proper unboxing because I've already kind of like demolished the box. I was I was trying to lift it out, but this motherfucker, this motherfucker was in there, son. You know, these guys over at CSS, they really do get the block very firmly planted in place, and usually I can get them out, but this one definitely was in there real good, which is of course fine. This is the way you prefer it to be, right? Um, so again, this I'm considering like an early Christmas present because I sit this out to have the dry sleeve installed. For those of you guys that have followed the initial part of the build, I bought an S2000 early beginning of the year. Bought it in Orlando, drove it home to Fort Lauderdale. Car was seemingly fine. It had a little bit of stuff that I could gripe about, but overall not really too bad. The body of the car is pretty healthy looking. It's pretty good looking. Um, and I think I paid 11,000 for it, or 11,500. I think it was 11,500. I don't know why I get it mixed up. It's already so long ago now, but but I immediately plan on boosting the car. I was like, I'm not gonna have this car and just drive it around NA. While it is somewhat peppy, it's not nearly peppy enough for what modern standards are or what for my standards are. And I'm not gonna have a car like an S2000 and have it be slow, right? So I thought also it would be good for advertisement for the build. I finally have a build of my own that I'm keeping, right? Because of course I have my Integra that does run but doesn't drive and is far off from being finished and not going to be finished anytime soon. Not until I get my house situation squared away. So anyway, a lot of people are like, well, we know how much power that the S2000 can handle stock. If the car seems healthy, why not just send it? And I'm like, well, no, yeah, I know how much these things can handle stock, but I would like to still rip the block apart, rip everything apart and make sure everything's all healthy and then upgrade things as needed. And the ideal was just going to be a refresher. I was going to tear it down and refresh it. But at the same time, too, I was well aware of the fact that FRM is very sensitive and high mileage engines tend to have a lot of wear with the FRM, with the, damage in the cylinders or whatever. So I was hoping it would be minimal scarring and I could just re-ring it and send it. Didn't turn out to be that way. At first, my initial thoughts were, yeah, it looks pretty clean because I had cylinder 1 and 4 at top dead center, and from what I could see from 2 and 3, they looked only mildly abrased, which would be something I'd feel confident with. But sure enough, I flipped the damn thing over, and get the pan off of it, and I'm seeing metal. And I'm freaking out. I'm like, I don't know, the car's running kind of sound and like what's going on here. Although I did have a moment where I had some like sketchiness right as I was dropping off my friend's shop to yank the engine out of the car for me, right? So I was like, well, I guess we'll see what happens when I get the engine apart. And as I'm taking it apart, I'm like, oh my god, there's catastrophic failure. This thing's gonna be fucked. The crank's gonna be fucked. I'm gonna need a new crank. All this shit, worst case scenario. So I get the crank off, and the bearings they're on their last legs. They didn't spin, but on their last legs. And I was lucky enough that all the journals of the crankshaft measured out healthy and reusable, and there's no damage. Right, so I'm like, great, that's great. I really caught this thing right as it was about to go. And I had only driven it for about a month before it stayed hard parked because I hadn't did everything I needed to get it to be street legal just yet. And I'm kind of happy for it because if I'd have been fucking around with it too much, I could have lost the engine completely. Luckily for me, I took it apart and was able to catch it, right? So that's the thing with cars with me. Like if I'm buying an older car, I don't ever plan on keeping it as it is. I'm going to rip it apart. Even if I'm going to put the same engine back in, the same engine is going to be put back in, is going to be modified. Once I got it apart and I seen how things were, I was like, well, let me just go ahead and get rods. I'll use stock pistons. So before I even taken it apart, I'd already bought rods. And then as I'm taking it apart, I found out something that was heartbreaking. I had the wrong engine in the car, right? So I thought it was an AP1. I thought I had the original engine. I had not bothered to check the VIN on the engine, and I just assumed, I have an F20C in there. As I'm taking the manifold off, I see the fucking engine stamp, which is in a retarded ass place. I'm like, oh, well, this is not F22, it's F22. And then I was like, oh, fuck, it's an F22. The rods I have, I can't use them. All right, so I'm like, well, fuck. So anyway, I was able to square that away, and I got rods replaced. But then, of course, as I'm taking the engine apart, I realized that, I had cylinder 4, which is the reason why I sent the block out. Cylinder 4 was badly scarred up, like way bad. And piston number 4 was also chewed up pretty good. Now, was it something I could have probably saved? Yeah, I think so. If I really was like 100% determined to keep this on a budget, I would have tried my hardest to save that piston. But I just decided that it wasn't worth the hassle and the effort. So I talked to the big guy over at Never Racing. I was like, "Yo, how much are some pistons?" And very fortunately for me, because the end of the year has been dry for work and there's been hospital emergencies with my family, so money isn't flowing as nearly as good as it was the first half of the year. And Nipper Racing has donated pistons to me for this build, which I am going to open for you guys here in a little bit. Now, in defense of myself, for you to see where exactly the engine stamp is located. F22, right? It's here. It's buried under the fucking manifold, so you can't even see the goddamn thing until you take the manifold off. So that was inconvenient and aggravating. Now, why I say this is this engine block is a gift for me, even though of course it was my block, is because what the guys over CSS did for me, right? So now a long time ago, and I've visited FRM solution for the H22 several times. I've talked about, you know, using Nippon Racing pistons to go to just drop in and replace your stock pistons if you want a performance piston or whatnot. And at the end of the day, I said the best solution is just go with a cylinder support system. They have dry sleeve inserts that you can do to get rid of the FRM problem. That way they just reline the cylinders and you no longer have to deal with FRM anymore. Now you're a guy with cast iron, right? So that's what we got here. No light, but I guess you can kind of see. You can see what's in there. I mean, if you go follow my Instagram, you're gonna see when the build starts to come together here shortly. You'll see it in better detail. But yeah. So anyway, it's affordable, right? It's super affordable. It's kind of hard you can't argue with the value of the cost. I mean, considering that most machine shops will charge you $500 to $550 for just a bore and a hone, you can't really beat the cost of what this is, because they hot tank the shit. They jet wash the block for you so that your block is clean. They bore and hone it, and they deck it, right? So Cylinder Support System already has a price that beats everybody else I've ever dealt with, and their turnaround time is very good, even though I have to ship out of state to get to them. It's $350 for the jet wash, bore and hone, and decking, right? Now, in my case, I did the aligners insert, so they did that as well. So the total is $850. Now, so they jet wash it, bore, hone, and deck, but of course you get bore and honed with the cylinders relined away from that FRM bullshit. So you can use forged pistons on this, right, without having to actually fully re-sleeve the block. And so we already know, like, this block is capable of handling a lot of power on its own without doing the CSS, right? But they gave me the CSS as a surprise. Like, my build did not include the CSS installation, and this is also the high horsepower CSS, right? So this the high horsepower CSS, I believe, is rated for like 900 horsepower. Now this doesn't have O-rings, and they do recommend O-rings for the big high horsepower, but I'm not going to be using that much power. And also just to say too, that Cylinder Support System has routinely seen 1,000 horsepower for numbers on this ring, right? So that, changes perspective on the build. Like, I wanted to keep this on pump gas because I wanted to be able to travel around Florida, maybe even further, without having to worry about fueling or whatnot. But this right here, this is like a challenge for me, like to not bullshit, like to go ahead and actually make some real power. And I have got rods. I've got rods that are good for 700. Now, they're Eagle rods. I know that people have squeezed out 800 on the H-beams a couple times. And, I have Nippon Racing pistons that are good for 600. So what I'm going to do is, like, Nippon Racing pistons, people tend to lose them over 500 horsepower. Typically speaking, I recommend everybody do forged pistons if you're going to go over 500 horsepower, because, and the main reason, there's two reasons, right? One reason is the fact that, you from 5 to 600, that's 100 horsepower difference, and yes, that is a big chunk. But at the same time, once you're crossing that 500 horsepower threshold and you're spending a lot of money to get over 500 safely, like on all of your accessories, your fuel mods, your clutch mods, all that stuff, then if 600 is where you're going to be limited to spend all that extra money to go over 5, then I would say go ahead and get the forged pistons and shoot for 700 or more. Another thing is that a lot of people have complained throughout the years that the ringlands will fail on the nip racing pistons. Well, of course, detonation is a big problem with that, and these cast pistons will be a little bit more vulnerable to having one of those mishaps, losing a ringland. So you want to keep your octane on the higher side, right, to limit that kind of shit. So if I'm going to be pushing around 500 horsepower, most tuners, if you're going to be at 500, don't want you to do pump gas on a 4-cylinder anyway. They automatically or already be recommending 85. So I've decided that I'm going to go ahead and get the most I can out of this, and I'm going to be shooting for 550 to 600 horsepower. Now, here's also my secondary situation. What's going to potentially limit my build is that I got like a Chinese clutch. It's supposed to be rated for like 480 torque, which I should be safe on my torque rating. Like I think power and torque, that'll be right in that window. I don't think I'm gonna pass that, but you never know. Like I don't know. Like I think it might be good for like 450, but I don't, or for the 450 horsepower range. I don't know how long it's gonna hold up. So at the end of the day, what's gonna come down to is how much the clutch can hold up. That's most likely what's going to be my stopping point. Like I'll probably tune to what the clutch can handle, and when the clutch starts to slip, I'll pull it back. Right now, everybody loves to say this. You're like, Chris, why don't you just wait and do it right? Well, first off, right? I bought the car like in March, and we are now closing out the year. I still have to put the entire long block back together and get it back in the car, and then I have to tune it. And I still have to buy a fuel pump. I still got to buy injectors, and I still got to pay for the tune. And I have my son, my daughter, and my wife's birthday in December plus Christmas. And like I just told you guys earlier, there's been a lot of family emergencies. Money's not on the high side right now. So the year's pretty much done. I don't expect to have this car fully tuned and operational until sometime in the first quarter of next year, right? Now, so I've already waited a year into doing this to get the build squared away. Now, also the fact that the last fast car I had was my Del Sol. It was making 440 horsepower, and I had to part that car out for reasons in 2015 or 16. So it's 2021 going into 2022. It's we're talking about like 6 years I've waited for my own fast car again. Now I have the Type R, which is mildly quick and whatnot, but it's not truly fast. I think I've seen wheel horsepower for a stock FK8 all over the place. I've seen like 272, 285, 290. But at the end of the day, it's a 3,100 pound car, 3,100 horsepower, 3,100 pound car, or a 3,000 pound car at best, and it makes less than 300 wheel horsepower stock. And I don't want to put. I haven't decided on yet whether I want to actually mod that car. I keep bouncing back and forth. There's all these different options I have. I'm playing with a whole bunch of different ideas, but right now I just want to focus on getting this done. And so what I initially imagined was like I was gonna just do this right now to get the engine running, get the numbers off of it, get some advertisement off of it, get the car out in the street, take it to hard park it on meets and stuff, get out there at Bradenton, with Kyle and the Booster Boys and all of them. Now I actually have something to roll up in that's decent. And but then, this happened with the CSS installation, So now, like, I have a much more powerful block. And, even if something happens where the cylinders get scarred up again in the lifetime that it has, I can always, rebuild it and bore over a little bit more. Because the great thing about doing these inserts is it's like a reset. Like now my block is back to virgin health. This is stock bore again. So I have plenty of space to grow. Because initially I was thinking get the block back, run it as it is, run it kind of basic. And then I was going to build a K block and then like send the K block to the moon, because if the K block would blow up, then I can just replace it very easy. But again, so now I have this. I'm going to keep it. So what I'm going to do is we're just going to get some good lifespan out of this. We're going to, run it for a while. Like I said, 550, 600 horsepower. And we'll just, as I'm running the car, I will, depending on how workflow goes next year, I will start gathering parts again to upgrade even further. Like I might, get some beefier rods, that are capable of 1,000 horsepower, get some beefier pistons that are maybe capable for 1,000 horsepower, and go from there. and probably do a rebuild on it get a better clutch and then walk it up from there. I guess, but at the end of the day too, I guess it also just depends on you know the clutch life. If the clutch starts to act a little funny on me, starts to give out, then that's what's really going to trigger me doing another rebuild or whatnot. Yeah. So again, if you got an FRM block H22 or whatever, and you want to get around this whole nonsense, you can go through CSS. Although I will say they don't have the service listed on their website anymore, and I'm not 100% sure why. I have a theory. I didn't ask, but my theory is that they have updated a lot of the shit that they have on their website. That there's a lot of stuff that's there that wasn't there before, and CSS's Cylinder Sports System's website, cylindersportsystem.com, is just one page. There's no links to any other pages or whatnot. It's just one page, and I think that what happened is they only have a limited amount of space for a script on their page. So I believe that they sacrifice something that they probably don't do too often. Now, of course, Cylinder Sports System, I follow them on Instagram, and I'm not saying that they Instagram pictures of every single build they do, but I do know for like the blocks like this, they tend to normally, well, I guess they didn't post this one, so I might be talking out of my ass. I don't know how many they do, how often they do. I don't know why they took it down, but when I asked, they said yes, they provide the service, and yes, they still gave me the dollar amount that I saw listed on the website. So there's that. And let me stop talking real quick because we're going pretty long into this video, and I haven't got to the Pistons yet. Ugh, come on, motherfucker. Now, the first time I saw these Pistons was at Honda Day, and I believe it was 2019. I believe so. I believe it was, 2019. Maybe even 2018. It might be that far. I'd have to go back and look at pictures on Instagram and whatnot. But, COVID shit happened, and everybody stopped traveling. So I didn't do Honda Day, even though I think they had it. I'm not 100% sure. But anyway, I saw these Pistons in, and they didn't go live for quite a while, and then they did. You see, they're listed now. And then, of course, I saw them once I asked for them. Sorry, doing this one-handed. A little bit of a pain in the ass. So anyway, it's the Pistons modeled after the piston from the F20C, but they're both good. They're compatible for both engines. And I don't really know if there's a big compression difference between the two. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. They're both compatible. Like I said, they'll work for the same. So we're not going to lose any compression using this, and they're beefier pistons. They're good to go. Performance cast or whatnot. So yeah. I said a while ago, years ago, that I would like to have a build where I really kind of like stress test the pistons. Who knows what will happen? Maybe I'll tune it. We'll see what the numbers reach. I'll see how high I can go. If I'm lucky, the clutch will hold into the 500s. If I'm super lucky, I'll hit 600, and then what I'll most likely do is I'll touch 600 and then walk it back down a little bit to be a little conservative. Walk the tune back down to like 550. Again, if the clutch holds, and then what I'll probably do is I'll start collecting parts. It's again like a new clutch, probably big injectors, bigger rods, bigger pistons, and then maybe go back to the dyno, turn it up a little bit, and then just drive the car maxed out and see how long it holds before something fails, then take it apart. Or again, tune it as high as the clutch will hold. It's a single disc clutch, so I wouldn't imagine it's gonna be too great. I would imagine it's probably my clutch is gonna start giving out around 500. It'll probably start slipping around there. But anxiously looking forward to it. I'm behind schedule on this build. I wanted to already have shit measured out. I wanted to have the block being ready to be reassembled. It didn't happen this way. Saturdays, I get up really late, and then I tend to spend all that day with family. I wound up spending with family and friends, so I didn't really get around to doing anything Saturday. And today's Sunday, my last day off. Woke up late, watched the Qatar Grand Prix for F1. And after that, I ran, went out, got some stuff, got some beer, came back home. And as I was coming back home, a friend asked me to go on a ride with him real quick to pick up something. Came back from that, watched the movie with my wife, and there goes the whole night. So it's going on 6 o'clock in the morning now, and I haven't got anything. I had to force myself to do this, and I guess now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm gonna check clearances for rods and check clearances for mains, and then have this engine block on the stand and getting ready to gap rings and whatnot. So yeah, what I'm probably gonna do is, because I lost the weekend, I don't really have anything else lined up to do. I don't have any other engine assemblies or whatnot, so I'm gonna take that B20 I have on the stand off and load this block on there and get ready to start taking measurements or whatnot. So hopefully tomorrow afternoon. Well, the kids aren't in school, so I'm probably gonna sleep in a little bit. But when I wake up, I got some things to do, and then maybe I can start taking some measurements real quick and get ready for the assembly. So that way, come the next weekend, if I'm not out of town, I will get ready to start assembling the block. And of course I have the head to redo as well, because I have upgraded valve train for the head, and that in itself is like a fucking 4-hour rebuild. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. Hopefully I'll have this together soon. This is the Thanksgiving week, so even if I had the block assembled or the engine completely assembled and ready to go, it wouldn't be ready to go back in the car just yet. I still got to make arrangements for that. And there's even a chance that that the guy I'm going to be using to put the engine back in the car for me might not even be willing to do this until into the new year. So, but the good thing is everything is here. I have all the parts to make this car run again. I just got to get it back together. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. I know it's a really long one. Thanks to Nipper Racing again, and thanks to CSS again. Cylinder Support System has hooked it up. This is the second time they've hooked me up with a good block. Again, the B series and my Integra they've done, and same thing with Nipper Racing and Scat. There's a bunch of stuff goes there. I have my Integra plans are the same thing like my Type R plans. They're kind of all over the place. I kind of am I keep a B series, or I'm gonna case swap. I'm gonna case swap all-wheel drive. Like I'm not 100% sure on that car. The only thing I'm sure about my Integra is I'm 100% keeping it. I might take the B series out and put it into something else, and it may be seeming counterintuitive because I spent this much time in the car runs, why not finish it? We just got to see. I'm looking to maybe buy a house this year, or get into something with a garage. And once I have something with a garage, then I can put that car on jack stands and properly finish it. So just got to see how things go. All right, guys, I know this was a long one. If you stuck around the whole time, I greatly appreciate it. Guys, if you have any comments or questions you want to ask me, the tech questions or whatnot, leave it in the comments below. I'm pretty good about answering most y'all's questions. If I haven't answered your question, it's probably because I've already talked about it somewhere and I just don't feel like repeating myself. But if you're in my DMs just to ask tech tips and questions, I'm not going to answer you. DMs are for business guys. I'm not going to be answering questions in my DMs anymore. You hear all these YouTubers talk about like and subscribe and comment because that all helps the algorithm. Well, it does help the algorithm. So I'm not going to ask you to like or subscribe, but if you want to ask a comment, then it's likely something I've already answered a million times, and the least you could do is the solid favor of answering in the comments, because yes, at least that way I get some benefit out of it, and repeat questions. So all right, social media links are in the description down below if you want to follow on those just to see what things are going on or what things are available for sale or whatnot. And peace. I'll see y'all later.